things work better in organizations and outside of organizations when people have a really strong sense of purpose and meaning in their work. Why is it that people who are employed full-time are going outside the boundaries of the organization and participating in these open innovation platforms in order to fulfill that desire to learn?
Welcome once again, dear listeners, to this episode of the Sparkr Podcast, where I talk to Professor Pamela Hinds from Stanford University. Pam is an expert on the future of work and co-director of the Center on Work, Technology and Organization at Stanford. As you heard, this show was recorded over the internet because Pam and I did not find the time to meet while I was in Silicon Valley. Also, this conversation dates back to 2017 and was one of my first ever podcast recordings. Therefore, please bear with me on this one, even if the audio quality is not the best. Pam is definitely worth it, and dare I say, the conversation aged quite well. So there is still a lot of interesting insights for you here. Together, we talked about the future of work, the increasing meaning of purpose, the mindset of learning, and the power of open innovation. So without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with Professor Pamela Hinds. Welcome, Pam, to the Sparkr Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you with us, and I'm very much looking forward to hear your thoughts and your insights on the future of work, which is our today's topics in this podcast episode. And just to start off, I would like to learn from you personally, why do you care about the future of work? What does it mean to you?
Yeah. Thank you, Christian. It's great to be here. I think there are a number of different reasons why this is particularly interesting to me. I think at a high level, most of us spend most of our time at work. And right now, with pretty dramatic changes in technology and the changes that are happening at a very rapid pace, we can expect that work is going to be different for most people, and that change is going to be coming pretty quickly. So to me, it's really important to be able to anticipate and think about what those changes are likely to be so that we can prepare in the best possible ways. I don't believe that advances in technology necessarily are problematic. I think there are opportunities there, but it requires that we think about the human aspect of those technologies and those potential changes and get ahead of it so that we are driving those changes rather than having the technology drive them.
Sounds excellent. It's like the perfect outline for this conversation. I would like to get all in these aspects that you've just mentioned. I would like to start with asking you, how would you actually define work? What is that to you? What does it mean to you? And how do you believe will the idea or the concept of work change over time? Mm-hmm. And I guess with that, we will lead into those trends and shifts that we are observing at the moment. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us a little bit about how you look at work and how it's going to change?
Yeah. So, when I think about work in the context of the research that we do, I think about basically how people spend, their days or their, evenings or nights, depending upon what shift they're working, but how they make a living. Typically, I think of work in terms of the people's employment in whatever job it is that they are doing in order to contribute to them being able to make a living. So I really think of it as, that those, 8, 10, 12, however many hours people go to invest in this contribution.
Mm-hmm. And is that like a concept that will have to change to still be adequate in the future? And if so, in what sense?
Yeah, I think there are a number of ways that it does shift a little. Even as I was answering, I sort of, there were certain phrases that don't actually make sense that I didn't use because, it doesn't really define, I think, the way that things are evolving. So, for example, we've historically thought of work as, and I even use the phrase, people go to work. Well, in the future of work, people may not go to work. They may simply stay where they are and make the contributions, through their computers or other mechanisms. I think that historically we've also sort of thought about work, as I kind of talked about. You go for your 8-hour day, or however it is set up in whatever context you're working in. But that actually very much is not holding true anymore. People's days are much more fragmented. People might work for a couple of hours and then do something else that isn't work and then go back to work and so forth. So, it's not so much a chunk of time that is committed to work during a day. It's something that's much more fluid and spread out and less well defined than I think it has been in the past. I think the other piece that has historically been assumed to be true is that you are going to work in an organization that employs and pays you. And, increasingly people are doing quote unquote work, but it's a contest. For example, in open innovation, they may be competing. So they invest the time in their quote unquote work, and they may or may not get paid as a result of that investment. They also, may not be employed by that organization. They may be in an online labor market. They may be on Odesk or MTurk or some other online labor market where they are doing sort of piecework for a variety of different employers at a given time. So, I think there are a lot of potential changes in the way that we view what work really is and what it means to people. And I think that, from a social science perspective, for decades, we've thought of work and identity as very much intertwined. People think of themselves as an engineer or as a PR person, or, we're very much, at least in the Western world, our identities are very much intertwined with the work that we do and where we're employed. And that, I think that relationship is going to change, although I don't yet know in what ways.
You said that work is about making a living, being employed. You also said work is about making a contribution. And that all led up to me wanting to ask you, contributing to what? What is the role of purpose, of values, meaning? Will that become more important, like proportionate to how more fragmented everything is becoming, so that we still need that the glue must become even stronger? Or how do you look at the meaning of purpose in the future of work?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. And I can't predict at this point how that's going to evolve. What we do know is that meaning has become more and more central for people at work. Most of the research that's been done over the last decade or so suggests that, for employees to really be truly engaged and dedicated to their work, they have to have a sense of purpose and meaning. They have to know what it is they're contributing to, and they have to care about what it is they're contributing to. So I think we're seeing an increase in the expectation that people will have that sense of meaning in their work. At the same time, with this sort of fracturing of the traditional ways that work is organized, it's not clear where that meaning is going to come from, and who's responsible for ensuring that meaning is there. And I think oftentimes meaning is derived from doing things collaboratively, doing things together with groups of people in order to accomplish something that is more significant and of higher impact. But for example, with the piecework in online labor markets, that breaks down a little bit. So it's and also when organizations become, so that as the boundaries of organizations become much more fluid, and people potentially identify less with an organization as their employer, I think that sense of meaning or purpose also shifts a little bit. But at this point, that's something that needs to be examined more closely. And I think we're kind of at the relatively early stages of all of this happening. So, we don't know the effects yet.
Mm-hmm. So you've been asking very interesting questions, and I'm happy to get back to them a bit later in our conversations, because we jumped right into it, and we haven't yet talked about the actual driving forces that change it all. So what comes to my mind could be globalization, or of course technology. You already mentioned it. It's developing very quickly. Change is coming very rapidly. So what are the driving forces that you see at work that shape our future?
Yeah. I mean, I do think that there are significant changes as a result of the advances that have been made and the advances on the horizon in technology, in a variety of different areas that are all kind of happening at once. I think with automation and robots, especially autonomous kinds of robots, with so much reliance on algorithms and the ability to gather, just incredible amounts of data and process that data and look for patterns. There's just a lot more focus on data-driven decisions. I think that manufacturing is likely going to change pretty dramatically as well, with 3D printing and other kinds of additive manufacturing technologies. The current factories that are so heavily reliant on, tooling and production of single parts for an extended period of time. I think that is likely to change, at least in some industries. Globalization is also a big factor, and it's certainly a big factor in the kinds of things that I look at. But that's also intertwined with the changes in technology. Our ability to work globally the way that we do is very much dependent upon collaboration technologies, the ability to have the kind of conversation that we're having right now over video conference.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
In terms of what I believe is important today, I still feel like collaborating across differences is extremely important, particularly given what's going on in the world today. And when I look at global collaboration, one of the things that I'm most passionate about is thinking about how to use that as an opportunity to make the world a smaller place. I mean, if a large percentage of people are collaborating with, from the US to India or China, or from Switzerland to, places in Africa or Turkey, or, to the extent that we're doing that, it is such an incredible opportunity to learn about people in other parts of the world and learn about their perspectives and their interests and what they care about. And, I think what I saw really early on in doing this research is the opposite was happening. There was such frustration in working together that we saw people polarizing based on their differences rather than coming together and integrating these different perspectives. So I just see incredible potential in figuring out and helping people to learn how to use that opportunity to actually work more effectively, be more innovative, learn more, do things that are more exciting. I mean, one of the things that we found, I did some research with Nina Nurmi, who's at Aalto University in Finland, and we found that people actually, at least in the study that we did, people loved working globally because they learned so much in doing it. And to the extent that they saw it as a learning opportunity, they were more innovative, they were more effective, they were more excited about their work and engaged in what it was they were doing. So I see a ton of potential there. So that's what I would say where my passion is.
Could we talk about how you think companies can establish, or also individuals can establish, this mindset of learning? And another path we could go down is open innovation, crowdsourcing, and the species of the pro-ams, the professional amateurs that are all over the internet on all those crowdsourcing platforms. Open innovation, crowdsourcing could be one path, or the question how to incorporate this learning mindset into organizations and individuals.
Yeah.
Do you have like a favorite, which road to go?
They're interconnected. So we can start with mindset of learning, and that'll go right into open innovation, because I think they're highly connected. So in terms of a mindset of learning, in general, I believe that people do have a mindset of learning. I don't know that organizations really need to generate that. I think they need to support it. And,
not standing in the way of people who want to inherently learn.
Right. And that, encouraging people to experiment, encouraging people to look at alternative solutions. One of the things that I often rant about is this whole idea of best practices. I actually think that the idea of best practices is hugely problematic because it assumes there is one best way, which sort of closes down opportunities and alternatives and ways, or discourages people from exploring other ways of doing things. And in my experience and in my research, what I've seen is that best is highly contextual.
Absolutely.
So what may be best here in the Silicon Valley might not be best in Germany or India or China. In fact, oftentimes it's not best. So this whole notion of best practices, I think, is one where there's an opportunity to shift the mindset by just not assuming that there is one single best way of doing things, because I think it just shuts down the learning. I think that encouraging that kind of exploration and experimentation is really key. So when it comes to open innovation, one of the things that I think is really exciting in that environment is that, most of the research that we've done suggests that the reason that people participate in these open innovation environments is because they're an opportunity to learn. So they may have, a full-time job in, a company somewhere, but they spend their off hours in these open innovation environments because it's a place where they can try out new things and they can share ideas with other people, and they get really good feedback on, some of the ideas that they're trying out. It's an opportunity to interact with, more senior people who have more background and expertise. And that, that's really the primary motivator. They know that, the likelihood of winning one of these contests and getting money for the work they're investing is relatively low. They do it anyway because they're there to learn. And that's the connection, I think, with open innovation. If you think about, well, from an organizational standpoint, why is it that people who are employed full-time are going outside the boundaries of the organization and participating in these open innovation platforms in order to fulfill that desire to learn? That tells me that something isn't happening in the organization that perhaps should be, that would enable people to learn more, experiment more, and probably contribute more to the organization as a result of doing that.
So happy that you're bringing that up, because I personally also think that so much potential gets just lost, that people have so much more to give than they most of the time are giving in their current job, and take it outside somewhere else. What could organizations, companies do to change that situation so that employees are enthusiastic about donating that potential to the company instead of a private project?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. One thing that comes to mind is that I think part of the challenge in a traditional organizational context is that there is structure imposed. People have, a particular job to do. They have particular deliverables, and everything works because each cog in the wheel, if you will, or cog in the machine, contributes its particular, it has a particular role to play. And I contrast that to, for example, a startup organization where the roles are much, much less defined, and basically people are able to step in and encouraged to step in whenever they see a need a need that they could work on. The challenge, I think the unanswered question at this point, is how do you scale that so that you can have a large organization that's still efficient and effective? Even startups, as they grow, have to begin to impose these structures, which then limits, to some extent, individual autonomy. Some organizations deal with this by, for example, Google has a certain percentage of time that you can contribute to, anything else that you want to do in the company. And that's really encouraged and supported. And it's a way to enable people to work on other things. I think the challenge in a lot of companies with a policy like that, though, at least in the US, people are working such long hours on the projects that they are responsible for, that additional 20% or 10% or whatever it is, it might not really be realistic if you're already working a 60-hour week. So I think there's real potential in things like that, though, to carve out time and opportunity for people to do other things that are outside the more confining structure.
I hope you are enjoying this episode so far. If you like what you hear, why not collaborate with Sparkr on your next business event? Sparkr drives strategy and innovation workshops forward as a goal-oriented facilitator. And Sparkr can also contribute to your next high-caliber conference as moderator or speaker. If you want to learn more, visit www.sparkr.ch/moderation. You find the link in the description of this episode. And now back to the rich conversation of this Sparkr podcast. On the one hand, we have the importance of exploration, trying out different things, being open to different approaches and everything. And on the other hand, we are, I believe, moving towards a world which is becoming increasingly data-driven, and to such an extent that also decisions are made by algorithms, by data. And I think in a pretty soon point in time, it will be really hard to overthrow a decision that an algorithm has made for us, which kills all those open playing field for exploration and experiments. And do you see that as well, or do you have a different take on that?
I think it's a really interesting idea. I haven't seen it yet, but I think it makes sense to be concerned about it. One of the sort of paradoxes that I see with the data-driven environment is that there was a sort of a wave, maybe a decade ago, toward evidence-driven management or evidence-driven decisions. And now, if you look at kind of the data-driven decision trend, I think the paradox is that the data that are driving the decisions are only providing some of the evidence, because the decisions are then only made based on the data that we have been able to collect or people thought to collect. And I worry about people not looking as holistically at the evidence that needs to be considered in order to be really thoughtful about the decisions that are made. I do think we're entering a period that leads me to be concerned about how people are using that data, what data we're actually using. And one of the things that often gets lost in these discussions is that, the data are just the data. Somebody has to analyze that data and somebody has to interpret what it is that the data are conveying. And there's still an art to that. And if we lose track of the fact that is an art, and that there has been choices made and interpretations done. And if we treat those, not the data, but the analyses as truth, I think that's problematic. I think it's limiting.
Absolutely. I think absolutely the same. It's a very big issue, and I'm loving it that you're pointing it out, that data is just data and it doesn't have meaning as long as it's not been interpreted by a human with a certain context, certain goals, motivations. So we're getting really philosophical now, that I believe there is no such thing as just pure, there might be pure data, but as soon as you transfer it to information or knowledge, it's not pure anymore. It's always contextual. And
I would argue that it's contextual even before it became data.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just
because we're choosing what to collect, and it is collected in some context that is often now lost.
Yeah, absolutely, and that helps me to elegantly take the conversation to the topic of leadership, because in that vacuum, or in that process of interpreting data, making decisions, that also changes the role of leaders, of decision makers in organizations, and also in our making decisions in our personal life. I believe that you have to have quite a lot of stamina to talk against data, to say, well, we might have all that data, but I'm going with my gut feeling, or my gut feeling tells me that this data is not worth anything because, let's say, garbage in, garbage out kind of way, not the right thing was measured in the first place. Or just, I think for leaders, life will become more difficult now to make decisions, because they have that conflict of gut feeling and data and everything. How do you see the role of leadership or decision making changing over time as a whole? Do you have maybe findings in your research, or just a personal opinion on how to approach that subject?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the research hasn't been done, so I don't have anything from the research. We're embarking on a couple of projects right now that hopefully will answer some of these questions. But in some ways, I don't think the role of leaders changes much. I believe that good leaders always ask a lot of questions, and they don't rush to conclusion based on limited or narrow information or data that has been provided to them. And I think that continues, and perhaps leaders just need to get more sophisticated about the kinds of questions that they ask, and as consumers of data, and also be educated about the kinds of conclusions that can actually be drawn from different kinds of data. As researchers, that's something that we are, really steeped in.
So that a connection is not a causality per se, or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Issues of causality, issues of confounds, validity of are they actually measuring what they think they're measuring? There are a lot of issues with just the integrity of the data and the analysis and the conclusions that can legitimately be drawn. I think that executives, leaders just need to be much more aware of that and able to be very critical in asking the right questions to make sure that the intelligence that they're getting from that data is what they think it is.
Okay. we've been talking about many different topics now, and I'm very much enjoying this conversation. It's very interesting to hear your insights. And talking about insights from all the research that you've done or you're doing at the moment, if a company wants to be successful, what kind of skills or mindsets or values do you think it will need to have in the future? Is there something that you have in your research that you can say those aspects are crucial in the future to be successful or increase the chances of success?
I think that one of the things that we already talked a bit about is, having this mindset of learning, really being, open to exploring, taking others' perspectives, looking for opportunities to integrate other ideas and other perspectives. I think that's going to be key. And then, I think the other thing that, I would really wish for is that as we develop these new technologies, we not take purely a technical or technological perspective, but really think about how we can design these technologies to integrate better with people and support them in the goals that they're trying to achieve, rather than undermine them. And I think that makes for more successful technology, and also a better experience for people at work.
Yeah, sure. And we all talked about the art of questioning. What would be the important questions that an individual should ask him or herself to navigate through the future that is coming, or through all these changes that are coming? Do you have some silver bullets that help people in many different situations, how to navigate through the change that is coming?
Yeah, I think that one question, so part of it is thinking about possibilities, and kind of opening the mind to possibilities rather than assuming that, there's more deterministic standpoint. If this technology comes in, then this will happen. And I think it's really useful and frankly a lot more fun to ask questions about what the possibilities are. What could we do with this technology? What are all of the possible ways that it could support us in achieving the goals that we have? So asking questions about what if. What if we did this? What if we did that? And I think having a kind of experimentation mindset. Let's try this out. What would how could we experiment with this to see whether or not this would actually work for us or serve us better?
Sure. And maybe as a final thought of yours or final chapter in this conversation, you said what ifs. These are great questions to ask. Exploring, being curious. Now I'm asking you, what kind of future do you wish for? What is your big what if?
Yeah, I think that what I wish for, so I think a lot about collaboration. And, I wish for a world in which collaboration is really a learning opportunity, where we see the people that we're collaborating with not in an extractive way, or in a way that they're there to serve our needs, but as a source of potential where we could really, explore that potential together and do better things together than I could alone, for example. And I think the other piece is meaning. I do think that the things work better in organizations and outside of organizations when people have a really strong sense of purpose and meaning in their work, when they are doing something that they know matters and that they care about. And that, I believe, transcends a lot of, potential, lower level challenges when people see great potential in what it is that they can do and know that the other people that they're working with have to be part of that solution, so that they're all dependent upon one another in order to create something better. And, just in my experience, the petty stuff becomes unimportant when you've got a group of people focused on something meaningful that they can do together.
That is a very beautiful vision, a beautiful what if, and let's hope that it's becoming more and more a reality. And I'm very grateful for having had the opportunity to lead this conversation with you. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you very much for donating your time. And I would say those were beautiful words of yours to wrap up this conversation. And I wish you an amazing day. Thank you again.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye. Thanks again to Pamela for sharing her insights. For more exciting conversations with leading minds in leadership, technology and innovation, please subscribe to the Sparkr Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite shows. I'm looking forward to welcome you back to another episode soon, where I'll, as always, uncover the mindsets, tactics, and insights of exceptional people. This is the Sparkr Podcast, and it was a great pleasure having you with me this episode. I wish you a great day and talk to you soon.